live. My name is David, and I have 10 minutes to reflect on my reviewers' comments. This is my oral defense, and I have several slides, and I will go through the background, literature review, framework, data collection, scope for each case presentation and comparison, and a summary. And each of these slides I want to address some specific comments that my reviewers had made on my thesis. I position the pedagogical technologists within this larger sphere of changing technologies and changing roles in schools. I know there was a reviewer that wanted to see more specific data on my schools, and I provide that data right here. I didn't provide it within the cases. I could have provided it as an appendix, but I didn't provide it in the cases because ultimately in two of the cases I was focusing more on the international schools in Asia community rather than on a school-based community. How did I actually operationalize professional identity? I took a two-pronged approach. One was coming from social learning literature. I base my understanding on professional identity as social, situated, and negotiated. It is an imaginary that must be operationalized by people. And I identified 4 domains. There's competence, which influences performance, and that is recognized within a community. And I came from that direction. I arrived at 4 domains. But also I was reading literature on educators, professional identity literature, and from this I identified components or factors, and that was a part of the problem, understanding if these things that are listed in these studies are parts of professional identity or things that influence professional identity. Are they internal or external in relation to professional identity? Regardless, I came up with several factors from which I developed research questions. And the tricky part was trying to reconcile these components or factors with these domains. What are these things in relation to these things? How are they related? Ultimately, I came to understand professional identity as a totality. As all of this, in fact, is professional identity. My original framework put professional identity in the center to suggest the centrality. Yes, it does, but I actually prefer to understand it as totality as well. I don't think that comes across quite facilely when I put professional identity in the middle here. As I reflect on the methodology, I intended the research methods to work in this way, starting with primary interviews and then filtering up through process triangulation into findings. Ultimately, I found that my research methods were more grounded, data collection is more grounded than I had anticipated. I did have these primary interviews, and to a large extent, things did filter to the left in the way that I had anticipated, but there were some unexpected directions, particularly with Scarlett in the secondary interview. So I did collect, ultimately, a lot of the data that I actually wanted to collect, and then I started to collect data that was unexpected, but I continued to roll with that too. And I'll explain why in a moment. I do need to mention that all of this still was triangulated. There was still a great deal of triangulation within and between research methods and research participants. Alright, I had some choices to make. If I have to create a binary, I had a choice in each case to write about the person in the school, the PT in the school, or the PT in the international school in Asia community. And how did I make these choices? The most important question was, where is the opportunity for learning? And I have to think about also who is speaking, who is ultimately the arbiter. And I felt in the cases of Scarlett and Steve, when they were providing data, when they were answering questions, they tended to answer more in terms of this community than in terms of this community. Whereas Sam tended to answer in terms of this. This was very much on his mind, performance and recognition here, whereas performance and recognition for Scarlett and Steve was very much based here. And it's important to make this distinction because of the understanding of professional identity as being contextualized. Here, the professional identity may be a lot different from here. In fact, with Scarlett, she also had a very interesting counter recognition experience in her school, which was filled with females. But ultimately, I felt she wanted this emphasized, her gender identity here, her professional identity here, and she also spoke of it in that way. Okay, so now I need to think about why I'm writing cases in this way and why am I writing a cross case chapter. I didn't have to write a cross case chapter, but I chose to because these people just happened to be a part of the same community of international schools in Asia, and I felt this presented a greater opportunity for learning. I think it's a better experience to present 3 related cases where we can deepen an understanding of their entire context than just 3 isolated cases that don't necessarily have anything in common with each other in terms of a greater context. Because I had to write a cross-case chapter, I needed comparison points. And so I took a lot of the data. Again, I went through these primary interviews with the original research questions, with the original primary interview questions. And so I had a lot of rich data here already. And I used these as the comparison points to compare these guys within this balance, this commonality in the international schools in Asia. So I showed individual variety within this balance or sameness in the community. Again, things don't necessarily have to be answered. These cases don't actually have to be compared. There's much learning within each case. But there's more learning comparing them. Okay, finally, a summary. And I wanted to be very systematic and rigorous in the way that I approached this research. So again, I went and did a literature review. I developed a framework with factors, and I reconciled the factors with the domains. From this, I developed interview questions, and I conducted the interviews. It was more grounded than I thought it would be, data collection analysis, that is. And I developed codes. I revised the codes. I also created summary statements. And in the data, as I was analyzing it according to these codes, according to summary statements, I noticed recurring or prominent views and recurring and prominent incidents or stories. Participants would continue to mention these certain things, and they would continue to mention certain things. And for me, the next step was determining whether this is adherence or non-compliance within the community. And that's how I developed whether these people were performing for recognition or counter-recognition. And according to the framework, I developed these narratives. I wrote these cases, preserving participants' voices. And I chose certain comparison points in order to create similarity between the cases, ultimately for cross-case analysis. And then I fed these things back and had to account for different perspectives, research participants, non-research participants, perspectives from the literature.